Hey everyone, welcome back to Cali Plants. It's me again, Mark, and today we're at the front of our house and we're gonna be looking at my Peperomia collection. Just as I said with our last video weeks ago, okay, a week ago, because I haven't been able to make a video recently. I was very busy. So now we're gonna be looking at the plants, all of the plants, and as we're going through that, I'm gonna give you some tips on how to keep your peperomias alive. Because personally, I've had some difficulties with peperomias. I actually have four of my peperomias die recently. So I was actually really just trying to keep them alive for now. See what they really like. I've been adjusting my care here and there, and I'm gonna be sharing you my tips so that you have some starting guide on peperomias if you're planning to buy peperomias, if you're planning to collect peperomias. I have a lot of different varieties here. Actually, I have 15, so this might be a very long video. Okay, and we're just gonna go through, and the light is not very nice today because it's early in the morning. So I'm gonna be switching the camera and then we're gonna be looking at our plants here. Okay, so we're literally at the floor here because the light is so bad. So now I just transferred on the floor, and it's much more shadier because of the wall that we have here, newly painted by the way. Okay, so yeah, let's just go over the plants. So some of these are not really looking good. Let's just start with the bad ones. This is the worst looking peperomia I have. This is Peperomia albovittata or Piccolo Banda, and this is one of the rarer peperomias, and right now it's not looking so good. Actually, it just kept dropping leaves. So yeah, this video is a cry of help. If you know how to care for your albovittata, send me some tips on the comments. So what I would say with the Peperomia Piccolo Banda is that the leaves are much more thicker than your other peperomias. Okay, they might look like they're thin, but they're actually very thick. Yeah, they don't have much color. Okay, but the upside of the leaves are really nice. Okay, we have that nice darker color on the stripes of the leaves. It has that darker color that is really prominent compared with your other peperomias. They have some more subtle looking stripes, but this one has really this nice dark colored stripes, and it forms tall bloom stalks like this one, which is something that I don't really like about the plant because it's supposed to be a low growing peperomia, but now it has these tall stalks. But it has some leaves up top, so I'm not complaining because it's still alive, and a lot of the bottom leaves actually have dropped off in the last few days. So if you have any tips on that, please comment it down below. So now the next one we have on this tray is this Peperomia tetragona. I've had this for a while. Actually, a lot of my peperomias have been bought at the same time, but this one, what I would say about it is this is a much more passive grower. Okay, probably because it was still establishing. So the growth it has comes up in these stems that just grows straight, and then the leaves come out as 3 or 4 leaves. They come out in batches, and then their new growth will also come up as a stalk right there, and then the leaves will come out at the tips. So that's how they grow. So this was actually called parallel peperomia probably because of that growth habit it has. This is actually a very unique peperomia. It looks like fake plant. It looks more fake than your other peperomias. Okay, but actually all peperomias sometimes will look fake, but this one kinda in that shape, it kinda reminds me of plastic plants, because look at this, look at the nodes it has. It kinda reminds you of the plastic plants that they have, that they stuck together. So that's what the nodes look like on this plant. Okay, and I just made it drop. Yeah, so don't mind that. I will just clean it up later. Okay, I think it's rooting because it has produced this new growth, but this is actually very recent. This plant doesn't have any growth since I bought it, so this is the first time that I'm actually seeing the growth on that one, so which is nice because we have a video about it. Okay, we have our next one. This is Peperomia Napoli Nights. So these Napoli Nights have this much more lighter colored leaves, and they're kind of silvery gray in color, and they're really nice. I really like the color it has. It has much more brighter color compared with your other peperomias, which sometimes go dark and green, but this one has a lighter color. The stalks it has, the petioles are also light in color. And it's a really nice compact grower. It doesn't grow very straggly very quickly, but you can see here this is the new growth it has. It starts out as like that, and then it gets wider as it grows. Now this one probably looks like it's dripping or drooping because I planted it too deeply into the pot. So I think I'm supposed to plant it much higher in the pot, but I planted it too deep, so the outer leaves are actually hanging. They look like they're hanging, they look like they're drooping, but they're actually very firm on there, so they're not that drooping. Okay, this one wants to be watered very rarely. It doesn't need to be watered a lot, and I think that I will overwater it if I water it too much. So I would check, just like with Philly foliage or with Nick Pelegi, he checks his plants if they're thirsty by pinching them like this. But now currently I'm pinching it, it's not bending too much, so I don't want to pinch it too much because it might snap. So it's actually quite thick, kind of like the Piccolo Banda right here. You don't want to water it if the leaves are not dry yet. Okay, so that's that. The next one is this Peperomia Hope. This one is a very long time wish list plant of mine. I have been looking for this one for ages, and now it's here. What I would say with these ones, they have these leaves that are kind of thick. They're much more thicker, by the way, than those two, and they're really thick. You can see here they have these coin-shaped leaves and really nice. And if you look closely, you will see the subtle stripes the leaves has. Very subtle, not very obvious. But I think some people have peperomias that have more shinier leaves. I don't know how they make the peperomias shiny, but this one hasn't become shiny at all. Okay, it was just this matte colored leaves. They just have those, and those subtle stripes. I don't know, some people have peperomias, I think I've seen online, which have much more prominent stripes, but I'm kind of liking the look on this one. But if you know how to make your peperomias shinier and have more prominent stripes, might change color. If you have some tips on that, please comment down below. I'm not watering it too much. Actually, it's kind of dry right now. And by the way, the potting mix that I'm using here is the same that I use with my cactus and succulent mix. The only difference probably with your potting mix that you're using is that I added a lot more organic materials, so you can see that it's not drowning in pumice. It's not pure pumice. I have organic materials here because the plant needs to attach to the organic material and to absorb water. If it has a lot of pumice, it will not be drinking and it will be just staying dry. So I've had that experience with my peperomias. So I would actually recommend that you add more alnus compost or organic materials in your potting mix. Anyway, so back with the plant. This is the new growth. This is the set of leaves. Same with the parallel peperomia. It grows these leaves in sets, in batches. So this is the set of leaves that it came with these four, and this one is the new set that it had grown here in my area. So this is actually new growth, this one. So this has been with me for about how would I say, a month. And yeah, that's just the growth that it has. So it's not growing a lot, it's not growing very quickly. I think it's because the plant is still rooting, is still establishing. It came through a box, so it was unrooted. It was bare rooted when it came, probably, which is why some of my peperomias die, because they don't really like to be transferred. They root very slowly at first, but once they establish, the growth will be just consistent on that. Okay, so there's that. This is the same thing with this one. This is the newest set of leaves that it came with, and this is the new growth. So same with this one. This is new growth. Okay, this is new growth. Okay, I water it very rarely, and if the leaves become much more thinner, then I will be watering it, or much more droopier. Sometimes I will just really feel the plant. You really need to know how to identify your plant's leaves if they are thirsty, so that you don't overwater them. And I also check the potting mix if they're dry, and probably usually if once they become dry, it will be just a few days before the leaves become droopy as well, and you can water it. Usually I water about every 1 week, or every 7 to every 14 days, or every 10 days. They really take a long time before they become thirsty, so you wouldn't want to rush them. This is the next one. I'm pretty sure this is the caperata. Yes, I'm just not sure if it's the red one, because the other people growing these plants, they say that the petioles are red. Okay, so yeah, this one has been with me for a longer time than those others. I bought this from a different seller, and this used to be much more lower growing. Okay, if you look at the pot it used to be much more lower. Okay, and now it has gotten much more taller and much more erect. But yeah, you can see here the new growth it has. So those are all new growths under there. Those are new leaves. They start out from their center, from the nodes they have there, and then they come out as these leaves. Okay, so how to make them wider, I'm not sure, but mine has actually been growing smaller leaves, so probably this was getting too much sun. But I'm afraid to give it less light, because these ones, they drop leaves if they're in less light, and they start getting droopy as well. So I'm really not sure. I'm still figuring out how to give the light that it needs. So I'll be giving you updates on that one. But if you have any tips on your Peperomia caperata, please send it to me on the comments below. This is the next one. This is Peperomia silver caperata, or silver rosso. They call it the silver rosso. So this one has much more brighter leaves. It kind of resembles the Piccolo Banda with the stripes it has. It's much more prominent than your other Peperomias, but this one is much more shinier. So it's much more shinier than the Piccolo Banda. The leaves are really shiny, and you can see that the growth pattern it has, it grows in a flat pattern. Look at that, they kind of look like a flat there. And this one hasn't been rooting very firmly. It's kind of wobbly in its potting mix, so I'm not sure. I might probably adjust it down there, or I might add some potting mix so that it won't become wobbly. Yeah, but I'm having problems with my wobbly Peperomias. Sometimes if they wobble too much, they will just snap and rot and die. So if your Peperomias are wobbly, please try to adjust their potting mix. Add more potting mix if necessary. Yeah, but this one has been a much more consistent plant for me. It hasn't dropped that much leaves, and it actually has gotten much more wider. It wasn't this wide when it first came, so yeah, there's that. Probably because it's been getting a lot more filtered sun, so the leaves are kind of stretching, but the new growth is nice. Okay, the new growth keeps them looking like they're compact because they have new growth. So these are actually new leaves that wasn't there before when I first bought the plant. So yeah, it's thriving, but it's not. I'm still having doubts about it, about this one. Okay, so yeah, you just have to be very patient with them. If you rush them, if you water them too quickly, even if they're not dry, if you water them too early, they might get rot. So yeah, once they start rotting, by the way, they start rotting from the inside, so there's not much left to save. Once they start rotting, the plant is just done. It's just, yeah, just throw it away. It's not gonna grow anymore, and you won't be able to propagate the leaves anymore, because they would have been very dry by then, that they won't have energy to propagate. So you have to be very mindful of not overwatering them, so that you can keep them alive, because once they rot, they just rot thoroughly. You will not be able to save any more of it. Okay, now the next one, this is a pretty common one with succulent growers, because this has been usually sold with succulents, Peperomia verticillata, or red log. And you can see this plant has these nice tall stems and leaves that are red. Okay, let me just show it to you. Okay, you can see the underside of the leaves. Okay, they're actually red, and the stems are red. So really nice color on that one. And the upside is different. It has these patterns, but the underside is red, and it's really nice. What I'm really unsure about this plant, because I have it in the same potting mix with my others, and I haven't been able to make this one get thicker leaves. But I really have seen this plant with thicker leaves online, but often when they come here, the leaves shrink. But I believe that it's supposed to be much more thicker on that side. Okay, so it's not supposed to look like a cup. It's supposed to be flat here, not folded like this, or not bent like that. So yeah, I don't know how to make them more succulent. So if you have any tips on the verticillata, on the red log, please comment it down. I'm trying to give it filtered sun, give it bright sun here in my place, but yeah, that's just how it looks. I don't want to give it too much sun because I think that it will get droopy and I will have a hard time making it firm. So I'm not giving it a lot of sun. I'm just making sure that it will establish. And you can see here, these are new growths actually. These are leaves that came that grew once they're here. So it's thriving, it's still surviving, it's still alive, it hasn't died on me. Okay, so if your peperomias are not growing, by the way, then that might be a sign that you're not giving them the right care that they need. So you might want to adjust their care so that you can make them grow, because if they stop growing, usually that time, if they really stop growing, if you're not seeing signs of growth, that will usually mean that your plant is going into the dying part of its life. It might not be thriving and it might be getting into dying, which is the case with this one. This is Peperomia prostata, and this is string of turtles. Yes. Okay, so I just laid it on top of the soil, and this is a very slow growing peperomia. This is not as vigorous as your others, and I've had this here. It dropped a lot of leaves as I cared for it, and I only watered it a few times. I don't want to overwater it. I think the stems are too thin to be overwatered. They might get rot and they might snap off, and once the stems snap off, usually with your trailing plants, that's the time that they will die out, because you don't want those stems to be snapping off. They have to be intact because that's what holding the plants together. What I would say with this one is it still has those nice pattern on the leaves that kind of reminds you of shells of turtles, which is why they're called string of turtles. This is Peperomia dolabriformis or nivalis. This is the newest one. I haven't watered it since it came here, but you can see that the stems have really come to their own. Okay, this is probably the way the plant grows when it was still back in the highlands. We have that stem that is already overgrown and it's kind of looking like it's a dangling stem. We have these stems and we have these flower stalks, and you can see the flower stalks much more clearly on this video because look at that, really nice branching, by the way, not like with your other peperomias which have just a single stalk. This one has branching bloom stalks. So I really like this one. This has taco shaped leaves. I used to have this one as well before, and I was actually wondering why it wasn't doing anything. So back then it wasn't really doing anything, the other plant that I have, until it just suddenly died one day. Before, I was giving it the same care with my other succulents, and it turns out that it's peperomia, so it doesn't like to be treated the same way with your other succulents because it doesn't like to have that very hot sun. So I would probably suggest, if you're growing this outside, give it much more filtered sun. Filter the sun with some shade nets, okay, or you can give it dappled sunlight under a tree. So that's how the plant will probably grow and thrive. I don't know if other people are growing this in full sun, so if you are, at the comments please send me your tips on how to grow this in full sun, if you're able to grow that in full sun and make the leaves thicker. But because I believe the leaves on this one can get much more thicker, and I'm not sure if the sunlight will make it happen, okay, because currently with my other peperomias that are like this one, that one, and the Peperomia graveolens, they usually have very thin leaves when I'm caring for them. So I'm not sure how to make their leaves much more thicker, but I believe that they can get much more thicker than that. Since we mentioned it, this is the Peperomia graveolens that I have. Peperomia graveolens is actually getting much more easier to buy. Succulent sellers will usually also have graveolens in their collection, so you might be able to buy this one with your other sellers who are also selling echeverias and selling sedums. Is that a pest? Is that a pest? Okay, it's probably not a pest, just some yarns caught up in the leaves. Okay, so yeah, this one also has that kind of taco shaped leaves, and this one stays closed if it gets much more sunlight, but once you give it less sunlight, the leaves will open up. So yeah, I've been giving it a lot of sun and I haven't been watering it because I'm afraid it might rot. So I only managed to get one stem, if you have a lot of these, and if you want to gift one to me, please check my description, check the description of these videos. You will find my address there. That's just saying, but I'm not really I just want to mention that my address is on the description of this video, but you don't have to send one if you don't want to. Okay. This one is the Peperomia graveolens. Yeah, I don't think that I've seen it grow. It hasn't produced new growth for me. This was all the leaves that it has when it arrived. So yeah, I don't think there's new growth on there yet. It will still be rooting right now before it will start growing leaves. Okay, so there's that. This is Peperomia obtusifolia, if I'm not mistaken. This is your usual common Peperomia, jade looking Peperomia. So this one is actually a propagate of my older obtusifolia. I had 3 large obtusifolia stems which I bought way back then, last year, and I propagated that because it was already growing outside. I wasn't caring for it indoors anymore. I had it growing under the rain gutter, so it was getting rain, and that's the time that it was getting watered, and it had grown, but it wasn't looking nice. It was already getting too straggly, so I cut off some of its newer growing points and I plopped them into this soil, and yeah, so that now they're looking kind of compact, but this one will get very tall once it grows. And actually right now you can see that the new growths are already showing up as tall stems. Okay, I actually liked it when it was still compact because it looked like a nice lush little plant. But yeah, this peperomias will just keep on growing, so yeah, if it gets too tall for my liking, then I will just cut it off. But I'm hoping that since it's in a smaller pot, that it will just take more compact and much more behaved, and we can have a nice lush looking peperomia. Okay, so we have that. Next one, we're getting to the end. This is the large one. This is Peperomia raindrops or Peperomia polybotrya, and yeah, it's named that way because the leaves are shaped like raindrops, and they also have these heart-shaped leaves. Oh no, why do we have a crack there? That's really sad. Then that's a new leaf. Okay, why did it crack? Not sure. Okay, anyways, this plant has been with me for a while, and I really like these leaves. I think it had grown a lot because it was in a bigger pot compared with the others, but I really like these wide heart-shaped leaves, and they're really shiny. You can see on the camera, it's really shiny, it's really shimmering, and yeah, it grows in these tall stems. Okay, you can see the stretching on this one. It doesn't grow like your other lush looking peperomias. It grows in these tall stems, and if you're looking at peperomia stems, really they kind of remind you of kangkong. If you're in the Philippines, they will remind you of kangkong, if you know what kangkong is. Okay, so yeah, there's that. Next one, this is my 2 watermelon peperomias. Okay, I'm not sure why this one snapped off, but this is the bloom stalk of that watermelon. Okay, this is the smaller one that I have propagated in our last repotting video. You know that I split apart this one from this one. This actually has 3 stems. I took off one of the stems, and you can see the new growth on that are really nice. Okay, I'm really happy with the new growth it has, which just tells me that it's alive. So you can see that the nodes it has are not as easy to identify with your succulents. They sometimes grow leaves everywhere. Just as long as there are connections to the main stem, they will start growing leaves. And probably once you manage to propagate them, they can also grow leaves everywhere. And the stem, they can grow leaves there. They can grow leaves at the stripes. So sometimes people will cut off these leaves and they will plop it on the soil, and from these stripes new leaves will form if you cut the leaf off and propagate it. Okay, this is the larger one, same plant, and you can see here it's really nice. It's really lush looking. Yeah, look at that. And it's been planted in a bigger pot, so I'm making sure that it gets much more larger leaves. And you can see the new growth on that one. Yeah, there you go. Those are all new growth. The green leaves on those are new growth. Those weren't there when I bought it. Now what I would say with the issue with this one, let me roll it around, and you can see this one we have rolling, we have these crisp looking leaves that have these broken sides. I don't know if that's just how it grew when it was here, or if it's bumping into other stems. And you can see here on this one as well, it's not looking perfect. It doesn't have that nice shape. Okay, it's broken in the sides, on the edges. So what I found out with this one, if they have leaves that are rolling up like this, the plant is probably underwatered. So it might have been left dry for a little bit longer than it needed to. So the leaves are looking like that. But if you consistently water it, the leaves will look like this. Okay, so we're back, and I just had to transfer here indoors because outside it was getting very noisy. So here, back at it again with this Peperomia watermelon. Okay, so that's what I just would recommend. If you don't want to have your leaves going up like that, like they're curled up and they're ugly looking, just make sure not to overwater your plants. Okay, so there's that. Okay, now on to our next. Let's just go over this one very quickly. This is what they call the silver. Okay, they call it the silver. It kind of looks like the marmorata, but it has a very different leaf shape. It has these crinkled leaves that are also glossy and really beautiful for me. It has that dark green color leaves, but are really glossy. And compared with this one, okay, you can see the difference. They're very different, but I think that they're the same marmorata. Okay, I think this is just another cultivar or another hybrid. This one is the green marmorata. They sell this as the green one, and this one is really beautiful. It's already a very big plant when I bought it, and I still planted it in this small container because I don't want to plant my peperomia in large containers. Actually, I have another peperomia that I planted in a larger container, and that one died because it was in a bigger container. So it was in this size of a container, but it was around this size of a plant. So I would recommend that you don't plant them in too big of a container. Even if they're already big, plant them in small containers still, especially since if you buy them from the box, usually they wouldn't have roots. So without roots to absorb water, they will become waterlogged if you plant them in a very big container. So plant them in a small container, and I would recommend that you also plant them with container with drainage holes. Okay, so with this one, you can see the new growth on this plant. Okay, you can see there's new growth everywhere inside of that. Currently it's growing in this tall shape, but I'm hoping that it will just let down and become a much more wider shape peperomia, like with the dark one that we have here. Just saw the tag that I placed here. They call it the Green Emerald Peperomia. Okay, there's that. Okay, this is the last one. This is the most expensive one, and I think the most rare one if you're living in the Philippines. I don't know if that's the same with other countries. This one is a peperomia. No, yes, this is not a philodendron that has been lost in this collection. This is actually a peperomia, Peperomia maculosa. You can see that it has a bigger, much more wider leaves that are really beautiful. Look at the new growth it has. This is another new growth. There was a budding growth on that one that has dried up, probably because it was still rooting. So the new growth on this stub has dried out, so it didn't have a chance to fully mature. But this is the other leaves, and we have another leaf right here. Another leaf. This is a very slow growing peperomia. Just as the seller have said, this was very expensive when I bought it, and she said that it's one that doesn't propagate very quickly compared with your other peperomias because it has these larger leaves, larger growth, so the plant will naturally take longer to produce new leaves because of that, because of its larger size. So for example, this might take a very long time before it reaches this size, and I'm still figuring out how to grow this one, but so far it has been pretty stable in my care. It hasn't shown any signs of rotting. I water when it's thoroughly dry and when the leaves are kind of easy to fold like that, so that's the time that I will water. But if it's not dry, I will not water it. So these are, I would say, the most succulent of all the house plants that I've tried. So houseplants usually are tropical plants, but peperomias, they're tropical and they're also succulent. So if you have experience with caring for succulents and cacti and you water them once a week, then that is the same care that I would recommend with peperomias, just a different sunlight condition. Just give them bright indoor light. Don't put them outside for very long. So just for an example on what type of light your peperomias will appreciate, this is morning light. Currently it's 9 in the morning, and yeah, that's how they look right here in the place where I'm caring for them. I had a plant stand, but these plants have already gotten too plentiful for that. My plant stand was also getting too small for them, so I'm planning to buy another plant stand. So here they are. They're getting some dappled sunlight here, but by the time that it gets midday, they will not be getting any more direct sun hitting them. So by the midday, they will be getting filtered light. They will not be receiving any direct sun anymore. But this one, this light right here, I think it's just enough. If it gets too hot, sometimes I will move them, so you have to be mindful of that. There are some varieties that are more sensitive to heat, but there are some that can stand really well. Usually the thicker the plant, the more heat it can handle, the more sun it can handle. But the thinner ones, like this one, it will get droopy, and this one as well. It will get very droopy if it gets too hot. Okay, I forgot about this one. This is one that we haven't talked about. So this is the Peperomia rugosa, and it's a very different peperomia. It has these large leaves with these white stripes in the center of the leaves, and it's really nice. It's really beautiful. It is a much more wider leafed peperomia compared with the other caperata varieties that we have. It's really nice, and the new growth looks like that. Okay, so that's how the plant grows. Okay, so that's new growth. These two leaves actually are new, so you can really see that I'm able to grow them. So the tips that I'm giving to you, I'm not lying about it. That's just how I really care for them. Plant them in cactus mix, give them bright filtered sunlight. Don't give them a lot of direct afternoon sun, and then water them when they're dry. So these are kind of firm, but once they get really droopy and really thin, they will get thin and they will feel like they're weak. That's when you start watering them, and check if their potting mix is a little bit dry before you water them. But this one, I believe, I feel like this one is much more needy when it comes to watering compared with your other peperomia varieties. So just as we're closing up this video, I'm just gonna be holding up this watermelon argyreia, Peperomia argyreia that I have here, that is really beautiful and really lush. And I bought this for a particularly cheap price because I got this, as I said before in my other video, I got this as a plant from a store that was gonna close up because they were already not making enough profit, so they were just selling their plants for a much more lower price because they were already closing up. So I got this for a much cheaper price, but you can see that it's a really nice, really lush looking Peperomia argyreia, and I'm really happy that I was able to buy this plant. I will not say that I made this plant grow like this. This just came here looking like this, and the first leaves that I was able to grow from it, these are just the leaves that I was able to grow here. So yeah, I'm still learning about them really. So if you have any tips on your peperomias, please make sure to hit it up on the comments below. And yeah, I think this video is getting too long already. If you don't want to miss any of our updated tips on our plants, I will probably be featuring other plants as well in the future, not just succulents, or some other plants as well. So if you don't want to miss that, please make sure to hit the subscribe. And if you really like this video and the tips that I shared with you, please make sure to hit the thumbs up. And I think that's about it for this video, guys. I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.